in New York this week, and it is really hot here. I don't know if anybody functions here. So what do I? It's not Northern California. LA is hot. San Francisco is like chilly. It's like 60 degrees.
Oh.
For our internship programs. Personally, I recruit for our internships, so our BOLD program and our MBA program, but I partner really closely with a sister team that hires for engineering practicum and software engineers. So Charlie came in before, right, from EP? Yeah, so I partner with his team a lot. Let's see, fun fact is I've been shark cage diving in Hawaii. That was pretty fun. Bonus fact, has anybody heard of Sriracha hot sauce?
Yeah.
So, my mom designed the logo for Sriracha hot sauce.
Oh, hey! Yeah,
the rooster. Right.
That's sick.
So today I am going to be talking about your resume and how to write your resume and how to structure it. Because when you do apply to Google, whether it's an internship or full-time opportunity, you're going to upload two things. You're going to upload your resume and your transcript. So your resume is the best way to tell your story. So when we say apply to Google, what we mean is submit your resume. So where you can look for all of our job opportunities is google.com/students. So we'll refer to this as our careers page, our job site. Essentially, you can go on here and you can filter. So you can say, like, if I only want to look for internship opportunities, or if you wanted to filter by location, like for you, if it's like New York or bust, or if you want to come to California, if you want to filter by like Mountain View, San Francisco, you could do that too. Or if you go on the website and you notice that a job that you want is not posted, or if you see that it's posted but they're not currently accepting applications, what you can do is you can turn on different alerts so that when it is posted or when they are accepting applications, you'll get an email to tell you, hey, it's now open, we're accepting resumes through whenever the end date is. Then once you upload your materials, you'll just click submit, and that's all you need to do. And then recruiters like me will review your application, or in other words, your resume and your transcript. And if we think that there's a good fit, then we'll reach out to you and we'll schedule interviews. Another thing to note is when you submit your resume to a Google job, essentially, as recruiters, we share your resume. So if you applied for something, let's say you wanted to do like a marketing job, and I'm the marketing recruiter. I'm like, oh, this is a really good resume, but I think that they'd be a better fit for software engineering. I would share your resume with the software engineering recruiter. So even if like you didn't apply for that, but I know that you're a good fit for what they're looking for, I'll share it. So just like a fun fact is like recruiters do talk to each other, so we consider you for a lot of different roles when you do apply. So now I can walk through some resume tips. So resume tips 101 is that it should be one page and it should be a PDF. The reason why you don't want to enter it into any type of like Word document is sometimes when you have it in a Word document and you submit it to an application portal, by the time we review it, the formatting gets all wonky and we can't really make it out. So PDFs are just more clean. And then when you're putting any information on your resume, you want to make sure that the relevant information is just clean and it's easy for a recruiter to pick out what we're looking for. So the way to do that is you want to make sure that you have bullet points. So whether this be for like different projects that you have, or if you have any type of work experience, anything that you list underneath that should be in bullet points. Because this is just, it's clean and it's concise. So you want to avoid anything that's bulky paragraphs because it's just hard to read and it's just too many words. So make sure you're using concise bullet points. We'll talk about this point later, the action words, but you do want to make sure that anything on your resume is conveying what impact you had, and I'll have that on a different slide of how to do that. Your contact information, this seems self-explanatory, but I actually have had students apply and they don't have their name on their resume, and they did not get the job. So make sure that you have your name very clear on the top, and then your contact information should be right underneath it. So that's the very top of your resume. So you want to have your phone number and preferred email address. Just make sure that your email address is professional and something that you would be comfortable sharing with the hiring manager, so it shouldn't be anything embarrassing. And that's all I'll say about that. And then for references upon request, I know a lot of people like to have this at the bottom of their resume. Actually, I would recommend leaving that off. Since we're asking you to have a one-page resume, you want to make sure that everything on the resume is telling a story and it's all valuable space. So if we need a reference, we'll ask you for that separately. You don't need to put this on your resume. You can keep that off. So now we can talk about resume structure, and what I mean about resume structure is the order in which things should appear and what should be included in these different sections. So this is kind of how I would recommend you do your resume structure. So right after your contact information at the top, this is the order of how things should go. And now I can go into each section and tell you kind of what we're expecting in each section and how to market yourself for a section. So the education is first underneath your contact information. So why do you think that this should be first? Why is this the first section?
That depicts your qualification. How are you qualified enough to apply for a job?
That's one. Yes, I want to see you're qualified. Why else should education be first?
Like majors and minors show what focuses you have.
Exactly. Yeah, I want to see what you're majoring in. I want to see what you're interested in, it means the story, and your students. So this is where my eye will go first. That tells a really powerful story. So when you're listing any schools, so if you've transferred, you want to list any former institutions as well. But for each school that you attend, you want to make sure that you list your degree, of course, but any majors or minors that you have. I know for a lot of schools, they don't ask you to declare a major until after like your second year or something. It's okay to put your intended major, that's fine too. I just want to know what you're studying and what you're interested in. Very important, make sure you put your month and year for graduation. This is important for recruiters so that we know what roles and programs that you're eligible for. So don't just put 2021, like say December 2021 or April or whatever. You do want to list your GPA on there, whether it's cumulative or your major GPA. Just make sure when you're rounding, you are being accurate when you round. And then these last two, they have asterisks next to them because these aren't necessarily mandatory. We can talk about different ways to highlight this. But relevant coursework, we should definitely highlight anything, like if you're applying for a technical internship or a technical role, you want to highlight anything that's CS related. Especially if you have like data structures and algorithms, like you want to make sure that you highlight that. For folks that are non-CS majors and you want to demonstrate you have CS knowledge, or if you have specialized knowledge like machine learning or AI or embedded systems and things like that, you want to make sure that you definitely call out, especially if you're a non-CS major. So here's an example of an education section. So you can see here very clearly like wherever they would go to school along with their degree and their minor. For their grad date, they have the month and the year and their GPA listed out. And then here they did list out their coursework and technical skills. So you can see that they bolded data structures and algorithms. I mean, on this slide, I know that it's blue and green. You probably don't use a lot of different colors on your resume. That can get really distracting and messy. You just want to keep it as like black font. But for anything that you want to stand out, you want to bold it. One thing that I will say is you want to tailor your resume for each specific role that you're applying for. So if you go onto a job site and you see for this specific role or this specific internship, they say that this person will be using Java, for example. Like you want to highlight Java on your resume. Or if it's C# or C++ or Python, like you want to highlight that. So just make sure that you're tailoring it for the role that you're applying to. Now for technical skills, when you do list it on your resume, you want to make sure that you're listing it from most proficient to least proficient. So the languages that you are the strongest in to the least strong in. So you can do it a couple different ways. On this resume, you'll notice that they have in parentheses the number of years after the language. So that signifies the number of years this person has been working on it. So you see how it goes like from 6 to 5 to 4. So you can do that. Or what you could do is you can list in parentheses like beginner or like intermediate or whatever your level of proficiency is.
Question. Do we have to link the skills also, like the libraries with, for example, Python, we have Django, we have Flask. Do we list that also or just Python?
Just Python. Okay, and next, so now we have your contact information, we have your education, and now we're going to move on to work experiences. So this should be the meatiest part of your resume. This should take up the most space. This is the most precious space. So of course you want to include the employer, so the company that you're working for or have worked for, the position, and the dates employed. When you're listing the dates employed, you also want to make sure that you're listing the month and the year so we know actually how long you were there. We'll talk about the bullet points later. And you want to consider relevant experience when you're listing out all of your work experience. So for example, if you're applying for a technical role, you might want to consider leaving things off that are not technical. So even if it's a part-time job, like working as a receptionist, while that's a valuable experience, you maybe want to leave that off, especially since the one page should be all relevant. So it's okay to keep things up that you think aren't going to help you get this exact role. Also, what I will say, you want to make sure that when you're listing verbs for things that are in the past, make sure that the verbs are in the past. So if you're like coded or designed, so make sure that they're all in past tense and not present, because a recruiter will flag that. Has anybody seen this formula before?
No.
Okay,
Complex
you don't
tasks
count.
measured.
Okay, so Laszlo Bach, he was our former head of people operations, or former head of community services. So he wrote a blog or an article on LinkedIn, and it got shared a ton, it went viral. And he basically was saying how to write the perfect resume. And this is a formula that he came up with, and I can tell you that every single recruiter at Google definitely goes by this, and this is what we look for in a resume. So if you remember anything from today, like this is the one to remember. So when you're structuring anything that's a bullet point on your resume, so whether this is a work experience or a project or an accomplishment that you have, you want to follow this. So accomplished X as measured by Y by doing Z. So that means everything should start with a verb in action. So it should be designed, debugged, created, some type of verb. And then when we say as measured by, so you need to tie a metric to it. Tech companies love seeing numbers, they love seeing data points and metrics so we can quantify what impact you had. So for example, increased server query response time by 15%. That makes sense to me. I very clearly understand what you did. And then by doing Z, tell me what you did exactly for that project. So did you do that by restructuring the API? Like tell me what you did. And that's a perfect bullet point. That tells me impact, that gives me metrics, and I understand how you contributed to the project. So here is a before of somebody, this is a snippet from their work experience. So what do you see here that could be changed, or what do you think is missing here?
For example, deploy or whatever you have done, but how has he done? That is not given to you.
Yep, that's true. I don't know how he did it. What else is missing here?
He just said like language is Python, but what exactly in Python, what libraries, what modules?
Yep.
I think those are stuff is missing.
Yep, that's true.
Isn't it the languages go under the original part, like the first section?
Yeah, like this is weird. Like it's weird that somebody would just say languages under work experience. Like that is just totally out of place because like I could put that in my resume, and I can tell you now I don't code Python. So this is the after. So this looks much better to me. So you can see here, I can see how they used Python when they bolted it. So they wanted my eye to go there, and I see how they actually used it at the software engineering internship in San Francisco. Where it says improve latency by 12%, right? Remember that formula that I just had up? This would be the metric that I'm talking about. Implementing a new framework, like this just makes total sense to me. This is much stronger than the former one. For first and second year students, a lot of students ask me, what if I don't have work experience to put in my resume? It's a great question. What you can do instead of listing work experience as the title of that section, you can just list it as experience if you don't feel like you have work experience. So things that you can list in that section are things if you've done like coding competitions or hackathons, any type of student organizations that you're a part of, you can list those here, class projects that you're really proud of, especially if these are things that are going to showcase different languages that you've been using. That's totally fine to list it here if you don't have any internship or work experience just yet. Also for projects, so this usually goes below your experience or work experience section. Again, for first and second year students, if none of the above applies to you, you can make just a project section and you can make this the biggest part of your resume. So still you're gonna wanna use this formula. And you can include, you something different class, you wanna tell me what class it was. Then you wanna tell me if it was a solo project or if it was a group project, and also personal projects. So I can tell you that Google hiring managers love seeing students who code outside of the classroom. So if you do have any personal projects, like any personal websites or anything like that, you want to highlight that on your projects portion of your resume. And then listing out again, if you're using any languages that you want to highlight, just work them into the bullet points underneath your projects. So here's some examples. So what are some good things that you guys see in both of these?
The date.
Date.
It tells you how you achieve.
Yep, that's true. I can definitely see their achievements and how they did it.
How they're highlighting the language.
Yep, how they're highlighting the language. Anything else? Numbers, yes. Love it. So I love how it says 300 plus downloads. I do love that my IO goes directly to C++. These are just very concise bullet points. So yeah, I would say if you're going to have a project section, these are really great examples to follow. Then there's an activities and leadership section. So definitely at Google, we have a lot of, I guess you would call them extracurriculars. So we have a lot of employee resource groups. We do a lot of volunteer work, community service. We have different like clubs and like sports that you can get involved in. So Google definitely loves to see how else you've been involved. So this is the place to put it. So if you're involved in any like teams or organizations or clubs, like you do want to highlight that. This is a good way to show that you're a team player and leader. Yeah.
So this program, in which section do we put that, activities?
Yeah, you can make this its own section. So it would be titled activities, or you can call it leadership, whatever is most relevant to what you're gonna list. Yeah, so if you're like captain of something, or if you're like co-founder of
Oh
something,
yeah,
you
I
can put
was
leadership.
talking about this Google CSI program, under which heading would that go under?
Got it. I would probably put that under activities and leadership, like it should be at the bottom.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Is it also a good idea to highlight their current project, the CSSI in the resume?
Yes, and I think that Maggie and Ray will actually send a snippet of how they would prefer them to include it on their resume. Yeah. Okay, so here is an example of activities leadership. I think it's the same thing as we saw in the project example. So same thing, bolding or highlighting whatever languages. You can see the numbers. It's just very clean. So again, if you're gonna list things underneath, like your activities leadership, this is a good way to do it. You wanna make sure that you're listing like if you were a member, or were you a president, or were you a co-founder, like you wanna list like your title essentially, or like what your involvement with the organization was. And then honors and awards, so this is a good one. I know that students oftentimes have a lot of honors and awards that they want to list at the bottom, and these are great. You should definitely list these. But what I will say is when you're putting it on your resume, you want to make sure that you are telling me why it's such a big deal that you were selected for something or awarded something. So when I say include selectivity if available, so if you were chosen, like if you won a hackathon and you said like, I won like second place, like tell me out of how many. So like won second place out of like 60 teams, because otherwise if you put second place, like it could have been out of 5 people and I might not know that. So you might want to say that. And then for speaking engagements and presentations, like you want to tell me what you were talking about. Who invited you to come speak? How big was the audience? What school did you go and speak at? So you just want to say like why it was important and paint the picture of like how many people that you talked to, and that conveys impact to me. So for example, here I can see this person won a gold medal. They were 1 out of 3, and there were over 500 students. So I understand why it's impressive that they got this gold medal. Or for this class, selected among over 2,000 applicants, that's a pretty big deal. Like that paints a much stronger story than if they just had that they were a class of 2019 member. That doesn't really mean anything to me. And you'll notice that not all of these have like coding languages in them. That's okay. You still want to highlight this because this shows like leadership and collaboration and things like that. But if you do have awards that are relevant to any technical languages, like you can still highlight those just like in the work experience section. Okay, so some final tips, and then I can open it up if there are any questions that you all have. Is again, just make sure that when you're doing your education section, listing the month and the year, this is something that we see students leave off a lot, and it's hard for us to understand where you're eligible for. When Charlie came in and talked to you, did he talk about the engineering practicum internship at all?
Yes.
Yeah, he did, okay. So just another plug, to be eligible for the AP internship, you have to be graduating between, I think, 2022 and 2023. I'm pretty sure, but you can check the job site to confirm that. This is obviously the most important one, is anytime you're listing, of course, in your work experience, but again, in your projects, in your leadership, in your activities, please make sure you're following this formula. I can tell you recruiters love to see this, and students always ask me how to set themselves apart from other students, or candidates ask me how to set themselves apart from the other hundreds and thousands of candidates that are applying to roles. This is how you do it. I can tell you that all the time. Like, I will always choose resumes that have this, and these are the ones that I forward to hiring managers, and these are the ones that get interviews. So if you tune me out, that's totally fine. This is the one thing that you want to remember from this session. For your experience, highlighting how you've used all the languages, I can tell you at Google our most common languages are Java, Python, and C++. But again, you want to make sure that you're paying attention when you browse for jobs. Read the job description. It will literally tell you the minimum and the preferred qualifications, and it will describe the roles. It'll tell you straight out what they're looking for. So just make sure that you're highlighting that on your resume. It's okay to have different versions of your resume so that you can tailor it to each role that you're applying to. And then tell us your story. So any extracurriculars that you have. A lot of times students or candidates in general like to have at the bottom like a fun fact about themselves. Just something fun, easy to stand out, but it's optional, you don't need to do that. Those are all of my resume tips. I did want